Hello, I am Ned Kelly. Welcome to the Buddha Brunch. And I want to thank my very special guest today, Reverend Robert Brumet. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Ned. Thank you for the opportunity.
The Buddha Brunch is a YouTube interview talk show where I bring on folks to talk about consciousness, spirit, Buddha in the sense of wisdom teachings, not necessarily the Buddhist practice. Could have called it Christ on the couch or something like that, but I like the ring for Buddha Brunch, and Reverend Robert happens to be into Buddhism, so that kind of works out. Well, I sit with his sangha at Unity Village Monday nights. Robert ordained in Unity 1980.
Yes.
Teacher at Unity Institute and in the continuing education process, SEE in the field. That's where we first met.
In Gaithersburg, Maryland. Yeah.
Right around 2000. And I think you jokingly said I could be Ken Wilber's love child.
Yes, yes.
Ken Wilber, Wayne Dyer, which I certainly take as a compliment. Author of several books, and probably most well known for Finding Yourself in Transition, The Quest for Wholeness, Birthing a Greater Reality, and the latest one, Living Originally. Today we're going to talk about the new contemplative. By the way, I'll put the link somewhere. You can find Robert's talk at the 2014 Lyceum. Was it 14, I believe?
I believe it was.
Yeah, about that subject. So nice to
2015, I think.
Last year.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we have that right. So that link will be available. And today we're gonna kind of probably take a more condensed look at it and see if anything's changed since last year. So to talk about the new contemplative, perhaps you could introduce us to what is the contemplative.
Well, contemplative in the traditional sense has always meant someone that lived a cloistered life, typically a Christian contemplative, a monk or a nun or someone like that. But today I think the word is broadened quite a bit. And we see contemplative used in academic literature. You can get degrees in contemplative medicine and contemplative psychology and so forth. So the word contemplative, I think, is much broader. And to me, I think in general, contemplative means living intentionally, living mindfully, and living in a way that everything we do in our life is intentional, mindful, and committed, I think, to a higher vision. And it's not necessarily a religious vision, but it is a spiritual vision in the broadest sense of that term, spiritual. So that's what I see as the intention, the mindfulness, and the framework of a bigger picture in our life.
I've heard you talk about the contemplative practice means experiential. So if you want to actually know what that strawberry tastes like, you've used that example.
Yes, you have to eat the strawberry.
Taste it. To feel the currents of the water, you need to jump in.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're talking not about theology so much, and we're not talking about religion so much, and we're not even talking about a technique per se, but it's more of an attitude and an intentionality through which we live our life and see everything.
So in terms of religion or God or spirit, it's not so much to pray to God, not even so much to read about God or to discern what is the nature of reality, but to experience and to know it, to have either a relationship or an experience of spirit itself.
Exactly, right in the present moment, and right now whatever we're doing, we're not doing.
And as you said, traditionally for several hundreds of years or millennia, that was mostly done in off in the desert somewhere or on a mountain somewhere, very secluded and perhaps only by a select group of people.
Yes.
Which kind of brings us to now the new contemplative. If that practice is going to remain relevant, if it's going to spread, which it is, and if it's going to continue, what does that look like? How does the new contemplative practice show up? And we already started to talk about some of the ways, but if you don't mind, what does that look like?
Well, it's being formed as we speak. In many ways, I think it's something that's that is unfolding. So what it looks like depends upon who's doing it, when they're doing it. But some examples might be including contemplative practices in one's professional life, so that one does medicine or law or teaching or whatever it is they do, not just to earn money and not just for some technical or professional end, but that is seen as a vehicle for a higher intentionality to come through. So whatever I'm doing, the form of it is just the vehicle for something much greater. And paradoxically, whatever we do with mindfulness, with intentionality in a contemplative framework, typically we do much better because our heart is connected, and particularly those of us in the helping professions, chaplains and nurses, psychologists often will use contemplative practices because it helps them touch the heart as well as the mind of the people they're working with. So that's the paradox, is that it really improves the quality of our life, and yet that's not the primary intention. The primary intention is to touch a quality that transcends any particular outcome or any particular form.
The word mindfulness certainly is more and more popular, and yeah, you hear it used in business. I saw a program about taking mindfulness practice into prison, and the end result was, and of course, this is how you sell it to the warden and get the program in there, is they're more peaceful and cooperative inmates.
Yes.
But like you're saying, that's not necessarily the goal, is to practice mindfulness.
Exactly. And it's used a lot in stress reduction and in healthcare because there's been enormous positive benefits in that regard. So mindfulness can be used regardless of one's goal or intention. And to me, contemplative practice includes mindfulness, but there's more of a sacred intention that's included as well. Because we could do mindfulness purely for increasing productivity in the workplace. We could do mindfulness for lowering blood pressure, living longer, improving the quality of our work. And we can do all that in a purely secular way. But a contemplative practice, to me, is, even if it's in the secular world, it has a sacred intention.
What would you see as a peril or a hindrance along the way, if there are any, that might get in the way of taking the contemplative practice into modern engagement?
Well, that's a very good question, because as soon as you use the word sacred or spiritual or any kind of transcendent framework, people get nervous.
Sure.
Because they're always looking for, well, is this guy going to try to convert me or something like that, you know? So we have in our culture this suspicion of the word sacred or spiritual, and that's unfortunate. So I think that's really our work, is to help people discern that sacred and contemplative is not the same as religion, and it doesn't carry an agenda, and it can be part of our everyday life without imposing a particular religious view on anyone at all.
Excellent. And how about technology, gadgetry, having our cell phones, our social media? In what ways could that either help or hinder the process?
Well, I mean, there's two ways of approaching that. One would be from the point of view of somebody using the technology, and to me, that's one of the greatest challenges, is to do mindful texting and to do email mindfully, and to work on my computer mindfully, because it throws me into that kind of left brain procedural place. So that would be one way, would be to use our gadgetry mindfully, and rather than as a distraction, rather than as an addiction, rather than as avoiding anxiety and filling our emptiness and so forth. So from that point of view, I could see contemplative practice as sort of dampening and slowing and bringing an intentionality to how we use those things.
Yeah.
And then from the other point of view of how we can use it as teaching contemplative practice, I think there's just unlimited opportunities for that with YouTube, with podcast, with Facebook, social media, and all of the different ways of virtual meeting rooms and Skype and so on and so forth, that the contemplative work can be conveyed electronically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that absolutely is one of the goals, one of my intentions of this show, is to have that medium.
Mm-hmm.
To the teachings, old institutions have to, at least embrace these opportunities to stay relevant. The sangha, the group, whether it's a Buddhist sangha sitting together or a church community. This occurred to me just today, that with Facebook and Twitter and social media and gadgetry, the community can take on a whole new look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it can be a way to gather together.
It can be. It can be. My experience, and this may be a result of my generation, is that it can extend the physical sangha, and it can extend physical relationships, but I don't believe it can replace them.
Absolutely.
So I see the physical sangha as the core, and then maybe the media sangha, if you will, as sort of the outer rings that we can extend outward, and different degrees of the sense of a sangha. And so my sangha can be virtually anywhere in the world, in the broadest sense of the term, and yet having an internet sangha doesn't replace the need to sit shoulder to shoulder with somebody on the bench and meditating.
I agree. I found that too.
Yeah.
I wonder what the kids out there, how they're going to feel about that.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would just welcome their input.
Me too.
And because, again, I didn't grow up in a generation where you sat next to somebody and texted them back and forth. That just seems strange to me, but I honor that if that's meaningful to people.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And any other thoughts on the subject?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to talk about, Ned, is that this particular movement has often been referred to as intra-spiritual. And I believe that's different inherently than interfaith. Interfaith typically means religions talking to religions, belief systems talking to belief systems, clergy talking to clergy, church talking to synagogue.
Yeah.
Intraspiritual is about going to the core of each of those religions and then uniting at that level.
Mm.
So it's uniting spiritually with the essential experience of Christianity, of Judaism, of Buddhism, and so forth. Even though the theology may be vastly different, so meeting together at the core, kind of at the mountaintop, if you will, is where all
You mentioned
religions come together.
the perennial philosophy.
Exactly, that book that we were talking about the other day, that philosophy is like the leaven that fills many different loaves of bread and types of bread. So that idea of intraspiritual, I think it also honors any one particular tradition. And so it includes Christian spirituality, it includes Zen, Buddhism, Judaism, etc., and honors the deep wisdom contained within each of those traditions. So it's very different than kind of a New Age buffet, spiritual buffet, where we have a little of this and a little of that, and we jump on the latest bandwagon. So intraspiritual really is rooted in the world's wisdom traditions, and I think that's extremely important because we've had thousands and thousands of years of teachings and teachers and wisdom that can be thrown out with releasing religion. We can throw out the wisdom that really birthed those religions in the first place.
And if people had a negative experience with their religion, they are going to throw the whole thing out.
Yes, and that's very unfortunate. And so intra-spirituality doesn't mean intra-religion, and spirituality doesn't mean religious, and contemplative doesn't mean religion either necessarily in that sense of the word. So that's, I think, an important piece of it. And there's a book that I was talking with you about earlier, if I can get the title and the authors. It's The New Monasticism, A Manifesto for Contemplative Living by Adam Bucko and Rory McEntee.
The New Monasticism.
The New Monasticism. It's a book I would highly recommend. I call it the New Contemplative because a lot of people have associations with monasticism. Like you got to shave your head.
Oh man,
you're ahead of us. And you got to be celibate, or you got to live in a cloistered monastery. That's not what's meant by the new monasticism.
Right.
It's more a matter of intention, whatever one's lifestyle might be.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. You can find Robert's materials. You can learn more at robertbrumet.com. Brumet is spelled with one M, one T. robertbrumet.com, and from there you can find out about retreats, teachings, those books we mentioned. Unity Sangha on Facebook as well.
.org.
It's a website, unitysangha.org.
Yeah, and then Unity Sangha Facebook
as well. Well, this has been the Buddha Brunch and my guest, Reverend Robert Brumet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ned.
Namaste.
Namaste.